Hey everybody, what's it, Fox Gaming here. I've got an updated PvP build video for you today. I wanted to show you my new version of my old Strikers Pestilence build. I've always used Strikers with Pestilence for PvP because in my opinion it is the only way that you can reliably play Pestilence, as you know, it doesn't have that sort of face tanking capability that it used to have when combined with True Patriot, and it doesn't have the burst damage that can compete with something like Lady Death. But it does have other strengths, namely in all of the background damage that it applies that can really help your team out. And if you play it correctly, and I will show you how to do that, you will be hitting the highest damage numbers in the entire lobby, or at least right up there. Even if your kills are a bit low, your assists will be sky high. I usually get a nice combination of kills and assists with this build, and I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. First of all, I will explain the build. I'm then going to show you some tips because Pestilence is a very unique playstyle, and then we'll get into that conflict game. So Pestilence has two ways to apply damage, as I'm sure you all know. It's my absolute favourite exotic in the game, and it's the second part of the damage, which is the damage over time. Plague of the Outcast can't be built. You can't build any resistance to it. So that's where one of the strengths of the weapon lie. If you get Plague of the Outcasts on them, they just have to deal with that until it runs out. That is it, basically. There's no hazard immunity to it or anything like that. The reason we use 3-piece strikers is, one, the 2-piece gives us weapon handling, which is very powerful for an LMG, because weapon handling significantly buffs your reload speed, accuracy and stability, which is perfect because Pestilence needs all of those. That's its weakness. But the other reason, and maybe the more important reason we use the 3-piece strikers, is it buffs rate of fire. Rate of fire is the single biggest buff that you can give to Pestilence, because it's essentially a double buff. One, it's obviously increasing how many bullets you fire in the same window, so therefore your DPS increases. But two, it increases how many stacks you apply to an enemy, because the only way to apply a stack is to shoot them with a bullet. So if you're firing your bullets faster, I know that sounds really condescending, but if you have an increased rate of fire, you apply more stacks in the same period of time as a non-striker build, and therefore both your bullets are doing more damage and your damage over time. I'm just going to call it a dot because it's easier. Dot is damage over time. Both your bullets and your dot have essentially built up more, and you've done more damage. So 3-piece strikers is the only way to play Pestilence in PvP, in my opinion. But you know, I'm sure some people will have some better builds out there, and please let me know if you do. This is just my version, and I really like it. So that's why I run that with Pestilence, because it helps to buff its strengths and remove some of its weaknesses. I'm running this as more of a support build than I used to, so I used to run this with Unbreakable. I've swapped that out for Tardigrade, because Pestilence, since its damage nerf, cannot be a 1v1 weapon. There are some ways to 1v1, and I will show you how to do those. There's some unique little tips and tricks that you can do with Pestilence. But for the most part, you're going to be sat in the back lines applying damage, massive amounts of damage I might add, to the enemies that your teammates are shooting. So that's what you want to be focusing on. Therefore, Unbreakable isn't needed. Intimidate isn't needed. You're not 1v1ing. You're not going to worry about going down as much. So you might as well choose something that's going to help your team out, as well as all of the damage that you're applying whilst team shooting. And of course, Tardigrade is it. You're going to give 40% of your armour to your team when they go down every 45 seconds. And that's why I've decided to go for 3 blue and 3 red with this build, so that they get a nice healthy bump to their armour instead of dying. The other 2 pieces are both Petrov, namely because we also get weapon handling from the 2-piece, but the 1-piece is LMG damage. LMG damage does buff both the dot and the bullet, so that's another double buff. Damage to armour from the Contractor's gloves that you see highlighted here is also applied to the dot and the bullet damage, so that's another double buff. So I've tried to build this around ways to really enhance the weapon strengths, and the fact that it has 2 types of damage, I'm trying to buff both types with everything. So I've not even bothered with critical hit chance and damage here. At least I've not spec'd too highly into it, because, well, you can't really with this build with strikers and an exotic. So my critical hit chance and damage are quite low. Don't worry about that, that's not the end of the world. Weapon handling and strikers are more important than critical hit chance, because a lot of your damage will come from the dot and not from your bullets, and the dot is not impacted in any way by critical hit damage. It's only impacted by weapon damage, so that's what you want to be focusing on. We've gone for Vigilance because, being a backline damage dealer, we can then have 25% damage, and once again this is a double buff. It buffs our bullet damage and our dot damage, so it's another effective talent. 2 other choices here, and I think they are equally as good. It's more dependent on your play style. Wicked is fantastic, as you definitely want to be running an EMP jammer with this, and I'll explain why in a second. And Companion. You can sit next to your decoy to proc it, you can sit next to your team to proc it. Companion's also really strong, and unlike Vigilance, you don't lose that if you get shot. So, a couple of nice choices there. Vigilance is my choice though. So, We're running a EMP jammer because you can now, with one of the buffs to Pestilence, apply the dot to enemy skills. If they have a skill tier 6 hive out, ramp up all of your stacks on that, and your strikers is going to help you do that more quickly, and then EMP it, and that will pass it on to the closest enemy if they're within range. So that's why you want to be using that. We use a decoy for another reason. I would always recommend running the decoy in the dark zone, but you want to run it in the conflict with this build in particular because it is a way to allow you to 1v1. As I said before, Pestilence does struggle a bit with 1v1s, and I wouldn't recommend that you engage in a direct 1v1 if your enemy doesn't have stacks on them, unless you really can't avoid it. If they do, then what you want to be doing is placing your decoy down and dodge rolling immediately behind it, and keeping the decoy in between you and your enemy by strafing left and right. There is an effective little strat in which you can shoot through your decoy, and whilst you have the green reticle showing that it's a friendly and you do lose aim assist on the enemy behind it, the bullets still hit them. You actually penetrate through the decoy. Your enemy cannot do that. If they shoot the decoy, that takes the hits for you. Now it does have a very small hitbox, so they will still get a lot of hits on you, but it will be a lot less than normal because that decoy is in the way, and it's just a very effective way to essentially stay alive longer in a 1v1. When you get into a situation where both their health and your health are low, that's the point that you want to stop firing. If your health is higher than theirs at any time with Pestilence, continue firing. The moment that your health becomes quite low or lower than theirs, what you want to do is either leave if they've got too much health. But if you've got a reasonable amount of stacks on them and you're both low health, you want to start dancing around your decoy, you want to be dodge rolling, just stop firing, start chicken dancing, zigzagging everywhere. They'll be so obsessed with trying to kill you and reacquire their target that the ticks will kill them. And then once they're down, you can continue shooting into their body because that continues to build stacks until they are physically dead. So don't stop firing when you down them and think, oh, the ticks will kill them. Yes, they will. Continue firing to build up more stacks, and that will then hopefully pass on to somebody else if they're close by. So that's a really effective strat. Another reason that Pestilence is very strong in conflict, and this isn't a meta build, but I still think this is above average. I think this is a top tier build if you play it correctly. Now, I'm not an advocate for this, don't get me wrong, but there will be situations when you will be trapping your enemy in the spawn, and they will show as immune when they come out. You can build stacks on an immune enemy, so that the moment they are not immune, the stacks will start damaging them, and then if they die in spawn, they're going to pass a large amount of that damage onto somebody else. I'm not an advocate of spawn trapping, but I appreciate that sometimes it just happens. If you come up against a very passive team that refuse to leave their spawn, well, obviously you're going to push them and kill them because they shouldn't be camping in spawn if you're the other side of the map. But I don't encourage the people actively spawn trap because it's not fun to do, is it? Let's be honest. But yeah, I appreciate it's a core mechanic of the game, so just bear that in mind. So use your decoy only in 1v1s. It's also very effective if somebody rushes you and you've not got any stacks on them, you've not got any damage, and they've already got you down quite low. You can drop your decoy whilst you dodge roll and get away. It's a little bit hard to demonstrate in the firing line, but I will... Did I queue for a game? I did. It's a little bit hard to demonstrate in here, but I will try to do so. But the advantage of the EMP jammer and the decoys, they both are one of the few skills that can be deployed mid-dodge roll. So let's say, hypothetically, you're stood on a corner, an enemy, you're stood here, sorry, and this guy starts to rush you. What you can do is place your decoy in dodge roll. I know I dodge rolled into a desk, but the decoy is placed in the middle of your... dodge roll, and you're obviously already over here and you're running off, and for a split second they're going to see your name above this and start shooting this. If they have a drone or a seeker, the target will automatically change to this, even though the red line still shows to you, unless they have to realign it back to you again. So it takes all the heat off of you. By the time they've even realised what's happened, hopefully because of your smart positioning, you're close to a corner anyway, it gets you out of trouble. Do not ever play Pestilence out in the open. You need to be not in cover, but you need to be playing your corners because, like I said before, its 1v1 capabilities are lower than some of the more meta builds at the moment. So you need to be in a situation where you can just drop your decoy and get out, run around the corner, leave your decoy there, and that's why this is one of the best things that you can run with Pestilence. I'm going to try and demonstrate some of these strats in this game. I'll try and do the kiting around a decoy if I'm forced with a 1v1. I'll show you how quickly you can build stacks with strikers, and even if they're downed, why you should continue shooting into them. And if we do end up pushing spawn, I'll show you how quickly you can build stats on an immune enemy as well. So yes, it's a difficult playstyle if you're not familiar with Pestilence. If you haven't used it before, it's not easy to learn, and it can become frustrating if you just keep getting rushed by Lady Death users. In that situation, I'll be honest, just switch build. It isn't great for 1v1, but if played correctly, I feel that it's exactly the same as a Diamondback or an Eclipse build. You're a backline, squishy damage dealer that if you get rushed, you'll get killed. But if your team know to protect you, and they allow you to do your job, you will absolutely win the game for your team. So your team need to enable your play style for this to work. And that's no different to the Diamondback build where you've got glass cannon and, you know, anything so much as a wet fart will kill you. Because, you know, the glass cannon in conflict is pretty hairy at the best of times. And Eclipse isn't much better, to be fair. But as long as you treat it exactly the same as those builds and don't try and get right in the front of your team, I promise you'll have a good game. For the most part. Right, let's probably should have inspected their loadouts there, shouldn't I? That would have been a smart idea. Now, of course, this is a solo queue game. I rarely queue into conflict with my clanmates whilst I'm streaming because it's a bit harder for me to try and communicate with them and talk to you guys at the same time. I don't edit my footage or anything, so for the most part, a solo queue. And again, that is where this build can struggle. But it looks like I've got a pretty tanky boy here, this Discreets dude. So what I'm going to try and do is just sort of stay behind him. Don't forget I've got Vigilance, so I really want to be not too far back, but certainly towards the back of the pack.
Rogue fixer drone detected.
People are using shields. Shoot the shield first, because not only will you break the shield, but you build a tremendous amount of stacks, and they don't see the damage because you're not hitting them, so they stay there longer. Like this, which means you build more stacks. But I've got a kill there. This is why I don't like having floating numbers. A few of my... Oh, really? A few of my followers recommended I put on floating numbers, and I've done it for you guys. Dodge roll, decoy down, get into cover, get the medkit off. There you go. He didn't even chase me. This means I might even be able to... Oh, screw it, I'm going to re-engage. I'm feeling brave. So keep shooting them whilst they're down. Keep shooting. You get the stacks up. Keep shooting. Don't stop shooting throughout the entire animation until you physically lose those damage, and you'll just build more stacks than normal. Shoot the shield first. Shoot the shield first, will only get the tick damage, so they stay there for longer. I know I've just said that, but... if I'd have had my decoy there... Oh, no. Oh, this is a slaughter.
An agent needs assistance.
We'll get you, buddy. We'll get you. No, we won't get you. I'm sorry, dude. We'll go for the shield guy first, because I can build up more stacks in a shorter window. Dodge roll behind the decoy, shoot the decoy.
Signs critical.
And get killed by a Seeker Mine. Yay! And get shot in the back anyway. Okay, that was probably the wrong time to do it, but yeah, you see what I was doing there. I was shooting perfectly through my decoy. He would have been able to do a lot less damage to me because most of the bullets would have been taken by the decoy, and obviously I would have been able to do exactly the same damage to him. So that's the right thing to do in that situation. But unfortunately, there was a Seeker chasing me, and I think a dude shoot me in the back as well, which is pretty bad for my health.
Allies have acquired the boost. Rogue striker drone detected.
I hear a sniper. That's a teammate. I swear I heard somebody shooting from the left here. Or saw a bullet or something, I don't know. Why did I think there's somebody to the left? Oh, I guess not.
If the enemy doesn't turn this around, they'll be pulled out.
Wait, this is our spawn? This is our spawn, okay. Yeah, we've murdered this team anyway, to be fair. So hopefully some of these plays have given you an idea of the right way to play this build. I'm not saying that I play it the best way, but you know, I've got a lot of experience with Pestilence. I really like it as a weapon, and I do think if you play it in some of the ways that I've indicated, you will have a really good time with it. Not only is it great fun, you know, you can wipe an entire team with it. If they're running like high damage builds, you will literally wipe an entire team. Oh my god, they're all here. They're all here. This is going to be great. Who do I shoot first?
Rogue Stinger Hive detected.
There's no pulling out. Keep fighting. There are no more rogue reinforcements. Eliminating them.
He's dead. He is dead. When is the blue line? Does that mean it's a holster? That's what it means. But yeah, if you try and sort of implement some of these practices, you know, some of these sort of strats with the decoy and the correct way to sort of apply stacks, and using strikers in particular is the biggest thing that you can do. Sorry dude, I had to kill that fairy first because he would have died otherwise. Yeah, then I personally feel that the way that I play is the most effective. I'm not trying to sort of sound big-headed there or, you know, anything like that. I just feel that with all the experience that I've got with Pestilence, for me personally, this playstyle has worked the best because it has had some nerfs, and you've got to sort of respect that its damage output is definitely lower than some of the current meta. There you go, that decoy's going to tank that for me. So you see the line was still connecting to me? That's why the decoy is so strong here. But yeah, just from my experience with it and how I like to play it, these techniques and this build work for me. If it doesn't work for you, please let me know. I want to know if there's different play styles. If you're going to come at me and said, well, what's it? If you're a backline damage dealer, why don't you just run 6 reds and bin off the tardigrade? And do you know what? That's actually a pretty good idea. If you've got some better versions of this build that you think help your team even better than my version do, then let me know. We'll have a look at the damage numbers here. I think my team carried me a little bit, but I want to see if I contributed enough damage and kills to make this build seem viable. Yeah, but yeah, like I said before, let me know if you've got any alternatives to this. Pestilence doesn't work too well on high armor builds anymore, I don't think, and I do think that Strikers is key, just because you apply stacks faster, but maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, I'm only one person, so let me know. So nearly 17 mil damage, which kept up with the guy directly below me. 7 kills, 1 death and 5 assists. So yeah, I'm happy with that, and that's how I feel most of my games go with Pestilence. It's usually top damage or thereabouts. I usually have a high amount of kills and assists. And you know, that's kind of the point of the build. It's designed to assist and kill, and team shoot is king in conflict, and this is one of the best team shoot weapons out there. So yeah, you know, it works for me. Let me know in the comments if it works for you. Let me know if you've got a better version of the build, if you love Pestilence as much as I do, or if you can't stand it since they nerfed it. They did give it a lot of nice little buffs with the Plague of the Outcasts, that you can now apply it to skills and it stacks correctly. So, you know, in my mind it's still better than it's ever been, but hey, like I said before, I'm a big fanboy. So we'll leave the video there. Thank you very much if you did stick through to the end. I hope you enjoyed that gameplay, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!